You're listening to the Travis Makes Money podcast presented by GoHighLevel.com. For a free 30-day trial of the best all-in-one digital marketing software tool on the planet, just go to GoHighLevel.com/Travis. Hey, what's going on, money makers? Welcome back to the Travis Makes Money podcast, where it's our mission to help you make more money. Today on the show, we're going to be talking a little bit about marketing with my new friend, Jake Sucoff. Jake is an entrepreneur, marketer, and four-time best man, which is pretty crazy. He's the founder and CEO of Patient Procure, a marketing agency that specializes in helping medical practices book their ideal patients and keep them coming back. Jake's career spans 15 years now of building and launching products across diverse markets, including B2B SaaS, enterprise healthcare, startup incubator, and loyalty rewards hardware. And he spent all of these years, working directly with C-suite executives, pitching in high pressure environments, and using data to influence decisions. It's going to be a fascinating conversation with Jake. But before we jump in, if you're tuning in, you wonder how I build relationships with the people that come on this show or on my other show, Travis Makes Friends. It's the Trojan horse, man. It's the podcast. The podcast has been the number one tool that I've used to connect with people that are just way out of my league in terms of where they are in life. So if you're already running a 7, 8, or 9-figure business and you're curious if a podcast could help you explode your network this year, I'm taking on a couple one-on-one podcast coaching clients for a limited time. Head over to travischappell.com/coaching. There's a quick application right there. We'll see if we might be a good fit to work together to get your show out into the world. travischappell.com/coaching. Jake Sucoff, what's up, dude? Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. What an intro. I definitely don't think I'm out of your league. I love the thought about the podcast Trojan Horse. And if I had known that you were going to read that entire intro, that bio as my intro, I would have made it a lot shorter. I'm sorry for making that so long.
Hey, I moved some things around and picked the parts that I thought were relevant. So no, you're totally good, dude. That's what happens when you've done a lot of cool stuff. It makes your bio more difficult to get through, But there's nothing wrong about that. Let's dive right in here, bro. Tell me how you made your first dollar, and then tell me how you made your most recent dollar.
Okay. My first dollar was the traditional way. I went into finance after school and I hated it. I did that for many years and found it to be soul crushing. I looked around the room and I saw a lot of people who were making lots of money, but had not seemed to advance in their lives in decades.
Mm.
And it just wasn't for me. I don't want to denigrate anybody who's in finance. It's an important area. It just wasn't something that I derived that much joy in. So I started a company after that called Text Savvy. It was a marketing hardware and software company where we were doing loyalty rewards. That was my first entrepreneurial dollar made. I did that for a few years and I caught the entrepreneur bug doing that. I was walking door to door in Brooklyn and Manhattan to different businesses, trying to pitch them on taking my loyalty rewards kiosk into their store. And it was an incredible experience. And to this day, it's probably what has shaped me the most in terms of helping me figure out what I wanted to do with my career. But most recently, my dollars are made through Patient Procure, which is a marketing agency. We're kind of a fractional CMO and then outsourced marketing company where I go into growing businesses, I help set their marketing strategy, and then I build marketing teams through a combination of people who are based in the US and those who are based abroad, and then leverage as much automation and software as possible to make it a lot more efficient.
So to start back into the beginning of this, you mentioned you were in finance and you hated it, but you still did it for a number of years. Was this something that was like a family thing that they wanted you to go the kind of the traditional path, and you just ended up being a product of your environment at that point, or did you think that you were going to love doing it?
Definitely the former. I was living in New York City and I got an internship through a family friend that led me to a full-time job, that led me to another job. And when you're in New York City, that's the culture. There's so much finance, there's so much of that high pressure, seemingly extremely important um, career
Yeah.
culture around you where you feel
Keyword
like
there
if you
being
don't
seemingly. Yeah.
100%. It took me a very long time to realize that what I was doing wasn't for me. It was a thing that I thought I should be doing, that I thought and I could talk about this for hours. It was something that society, I don't want to blame society,
Yeah,
but I was doing it because I felt the pressure of keeping up with the Joneses, of
sure.
wanting to go to fancy dinners and spend a lot of money on drinks at the bar after work. And you're in that environment and it feels really important and exciting. And it took a fair amount of time to realize that wasn't what was important to me.
Get caught in the status chase.
100%.
What did your parents do?
My dad was a lawyer for many, many years and then transitioned into finance later because he realized that there were a lot of people who were not trying nearly as hard as he was, making a lot more money. And he eventually started his own company. My mom was a yoga instructor and a personal trainer for many years. And so I also entrepreneurial. I had been exposed to what it meant to start your own company and be kind of the master of your own destiny there,
Yeah.
but didn't really understand that until I started Text Savvy, and then I got a real crash course in what it meant to be the single point of failure in your business and be the only person who cares and what that means. I didn't have any co-founders there. I don't have any co-founders in Patient Procure. I have had partners in the past with other ventures that some have gone well, some have really not. And it's something that I feel like it's easy to want, but really difficult in practice to find good partners.
Let's talk about that for a second, man. This is something that I had a call yesterday with coaching client who was looking at bringing in partners to a project they were working on. And I could tell that they were kind of on the romanticizing end of the spectrum, and thinking all of the good things, the lovey-dovey parts that come along with having partners, which there are a lot of benefits, and really anything of significant size, like we're talking, 50, 100 million plus. If you look at all of those companies, the vast majority of them are partnership based. But this kind of goes to what we were talking about at the very beginning before we hit the record button about having clarity around what you really want, not just like
Mm.
building something massive arbitrarily for sake of status or for just because you think that you got to go to a billion. But we can talk about that in a second. What have been the key learnings for you around business partnership, and what's your advice to anybody out there who's considering partnership with somebody?
Oh man, great question. So much ground to cover. First and foremost, finding a business partner is like finding a spouse. It is extremely challenging to find the right person. If you're aggressively looking for it, it's probably not going to happen. You're probably going to end up with the wrong person because you are going to force yourself into a relationship that shouldn't happen. I think there's a great deal of serendipity that needs to happen to find the right person. Of course, you have to put yourself out there. It's never going to happen if you aren't actively, trying to find it, but you really want to, it's better to go it alone than it is to work with the wrong partner because the eventuality of working with the wrong partner is heartbreak and disaster. You need to be willing to compromise and, again, hone into what's really important. Find somebody with complementary skills that are going to um, be strengths where you have weaknesses. I am a talker. I'm a seller. I'm really into ops. I have some technical background, but not a lot. I am a musician and I'm creative in that sense, but I'm not a designer. I can speak to marketing strategy, but that's not my strength.
Hmm.
I rely on experts within marketing to help me set the strategy, and I put them in a position to be successful. So when looking for a partner, you want to make sure you're not going to have somebody who you're going to butt heads with on the important things. If you're the finance person, don't get a finance partner.
Yeah.
You want somebody who's going to be strong in other areas. I also think that for a while, I managed an incubator and I worked with a lot of early stage companies. And the prevailing advice that early stage founders get is to be really precious with their equity. And I think that that's the wrong mindset. I think it's better to be generous with your equity, provided you find the right person who's going to be valuable to you. You don't want to be squabbling over a few points of equity. If it's the right person, be generous. If they're going to take you far, it's going to make your equity significantly more valuable. And you need to give people the proper incentive to join your company.
Hmm.
So those are a couple quick hits. We could dig deeper into any of those if you want, but that's what I'd start with.
Yeah, talk to me about just structure, operating agreement type things. I think some people don't realize how creative you can get with the structure of a partnership, and they look at it as black and white. It's like, well, if we're going to be like, we're 50-50 partners and it's 50-50 and they own 50 and I own 50, but then it's like, okay, but who's going to make the decisions if you guys are a split vote on something? And they don't realize too that it's not necessarily a majority equity that decides who makes the decisions in those times. You can write whatever you want into the operating agreement as long as both parties agree on this, right?
Yeah, that's a really great point. I've done it both ways. I think that if you can afford a lawyer, having one come in and help you with the operating agreement is really great because then uh, you don't need to get into the weeds about certain topics. That said, I've had partnerships with people where it was a paragraph on a piece of paper and a handshake agreement that have gone better.
Hmm.
At the end of the day, a contract is only as strong as your willingness to litigate, and it's very unlikely that you're going to want to bring a partner or ex-partner to court unless there's something huge to fight over. So I'd focus more on finding the right person who you trust, who's not going to screw you over, than making sure you have an ironclad agreement that covers every single base because you're never going to figure out every edge case. You're never going to understand exactly where things are going to go wrong. Um, I think it's more about you need to find somebody who you can trust. And that's one of the challenging parts back to finding the right person. You don't really know until you start working with somebody. It can seem really great, but
Yeah.
you haven't gone through adversity with a person. You don't know what they're going to be like when their back's up against the wall. And I've worked with people who seemingly were incredible. We had a great working relationship. And then as soon as things went south, they became very defensive and
Hmm.
it turned into uh, me versus them as opposed to the two of us versus the problem. And it's a really awful place to be. So I'd focus more on the right person than making sure you have an agreement that covers every single base.
So is your decision to operate Patient Procure without a partner, is that an intentional decision because of bad experiences in the past? Or was it just like there's nobody really that lined up with me on this and it just kind of happened that way, but I would be totally open to partnering again in the future?
It's the latter. I'm actually talking to somebody right now who I have a good relationship with about working together
Okay.
in some kind of partnership capacity. We're not going to be 50-50. I don't know exactly what the agreement is yet, but we have a great working relationship. We have the benefit of having worked together, so we know what the others like. Um, I am absolutely open to partners with Patient Procure. I wanted to get started. I wanted to get started fast. I didn't want to waste time looking for a co-founder. And also, I've been in situations, particularly where I've been an observer for companies that I've worked with, where you want to find a partner, but you don't have anything to really talk about yet.
Hmm.
Now I have a bunch of clients. Things are working really well. I'm hyper focused on process, on software, on my team, on getting things more efficient, on scaling. It's really easy to attract somebody to my business right now.
Sure.
It's not hypothetical. I can point to the revenue we have. I can talk about our headcount. I can talk about our clients, about our prospects. I don't want to say it's a no-brainer, but the right person really wants to work with me right now. Before we have anything, it also puts you in a position of strength in negotiating. I don't need a partner.
Hmm.
I'm probably going to move more slowly than I would with a strategic partner who can either make introductions into certain demographics or communities,
Sure.
or who has a complementary strength that I don't have, who can make the company that much stronger, but I don't need it. So, being able to have something that you can talk about already and point to definitely makes it easier to find a person.
Let's move into the personal finance side of this equation, Jake. Entrepreneurship it's a tough gig. There's ups and downs. There's celebratory months, and then there's months where you're wondering why you ever started a company to begin with. Um, what do you do with personal finances on the back end to set yourself up for success on the entrepreneurship side?
Great question. The first thing you need to understand is what you need to survive. I have a wife and two children, and so it's extremely important that we make sure that the quality of life of them does not diminish because of decisions that I'm making with my business.
Hmm.
We had a very, very long conversation about my pursuing this before I got into it. I would highly recommend if you're interested in entrepreneurship to do so before you have a wife and children. I wouldn't trade my position for anybody. I feel like I'm the luckiest man on the planet, and I'm able to organize my life where I can drop off my son at daycare and I can pick him up. I get to spend time if one of my kids is sick, I can be home with him. That lifestyle is really important to me. And that's the reason why I pursued entrepreneurship, not to make $1 billion.
Sure.
Um, so if you're in my situation, if you have dependents, if there are people in your life, you need to have very open, honest conversations with the people in your life about what's that number that I need to be at every month to make sure that we are comfortable.
Yeah.
I'm not thinking about taking vacations right now. I'm not thinking about buying fancy things. That's not the point in my career that I'm at. I'm
Yeah.
focused on making sure we don't have, the stress and anxiety about whether or not we can pay mortgage
Right.
next month. Um, so everybody's going to be different. I think you need to approach it with your own reality. If you know that you need to pay your rent and you need to buy food, maybe there's a couple other necessities that you have for quality of life to keep your sanity, but that's where we're at. Are we making sure that our base is covered? And then right now, anything in excess of that, I'm putting back into my business.
Yeah. What about like, emergency savings, or maybe somebody's listening and they got 25 grand in credit card debt or something like that. Where should they be focusing their energy?
I mean, I am not the person to ask about emergency savings right now. We're not in trouble, but things are tight. I
Yeah.
started this business back in August,
Oh, wow.
and
Okay.
uh, and so it's in the early days. I'm really investing a lot into personnel, into the right tools. I'm not focused on making as much money as possible. I'm focused on delivering an extremely good product to my clients
Yeah.
and preparing for the future. We've got a bunch of new clients recently, um, and it requires investment to make sure that I am delivering the right tools. But that goes back to understanding what everybody's reality is. I mean, you
Yeah.
need to make sure you have a few months in savings. If we had, God forbid, some accident for one of us, we have enough money in savings where we'd be able to cover that.
Yeah.
Um, Far in excess of that, I'm praying that, we have insurance, but I hope a meteor doesn't hit our house or we have a fire.
Right.
We have car insurance, but I'm praying we don't get into a wreck.
Right.
There are um, there are certain realities that I'm hoping we avoid for a
Yeah.
while until I'm a bit more stable.
Yeah. This is the reality of entrepreneurship, though. It's
100%.
the reality is that you're gonna feel pressure. You're gonna feel you're gonna feel a squeeze financially, especially when you're going from 0 to 1. When you're going from like this doesn't exist to now this does exist and it generates cash flow. um that it's gonna be tight for a while, which speaks to
Yeah.
the importance of living a frugal lifestyle. That has been at the root of every big risk I've ever taken. Is this that I'm lucky in that my wife is willing to support my crazy, stupid ideas, and that she's enrolled into the mission of where we're headed and why we do what we do. And sometimes that's meant, you know, moving out of a really nice place with a pool in a great part of town to rooming with my wife's brother for 6 months. This was like 7 years ago when I was starting the podcast. It was like, look, I don't know how this is going to turn into money. I don't know how this is going to turn into full-time income, but I do want to, I think it has the potential to. We just can't afford to live in this place anymore. We can't afford to have these types of luxuries. I got to just be reinvesting into this business. I got to be reinvesting into myself and into my skill sets so that I can be the type of person who's capable of running the business that I want to be running.
Yeah.
And she's always been on board for that, which I'm very, very blessed and lucky, because I know that's not the case for a lot of people.
Yeah. I really try to hone into, is this a thing that I want because I want it, or is it a thing that I want because I think that I'm supposed to want it? And
Mm,
there's a lot of material things in this world that when you are not in a position to afford them, you realize you don't actually really want them. Or maybe I'm
mm.
gaslighting myself. But when
No,
I was
I totally agree with
single
that.
and
Yeah.
when I was single and living in the city, and I had a really great paycheck and I had no responsibilities or very few responsibilities, you start to live a lifestyle. I mean, lifestyle creep is real,
Absolutely.
especially when you're surrounded by other people who are living this certain way, and it just feels normal. And I would encourage anybody who is young, who is living a life that is mostly carefree, and they want to start a business, to really think deeply about that, especially because if you want to be successful, you're not going to get there by, dicking around 5 nights a week. I
Right.
mean, if you're
Right.
really serious about building your business, you need to put all of your energy into it. And as somebody who oftentimes I feel like I'm fighting with a hand tied behind my back because I have so much responsibility outside of this business. And again, would not trade it for the world.
Yeah.
My family is my life.
Yep.
To be able to spend more time with them is, like I said, the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing. So I never focus on that as a detriment, or I never want to think about it negatively as if they're holding me back.
Sure.
That said, there's certain realities and responsibilities that prevent me from, I can't stay up all night working on this.
Right.
We were talking before, my kids are sick. Last night I was up at 2 and 3 and 5. So I
Yep.
need to power through this day and then be ready to receive the kids at 5:30 and be dad
Hmm.
until they go to bed. Um,
And try to get some sleep tonight.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So we kind of went off the rails a little bit there, but
No, I think it's
um,
important, man. I think it's important to talk through those things, because there's definitely people listening who have bought into that they can't, that like that time is past for me. Like I'm, that sounds great. That sounds great, Jake. But I got 3 kids, and I'm 43 years old. I can't leave my full time thing. I got to, I got responsibilities and stuff, and it's like I understand that that it might be a little bit more difficult. The rules might be a little bit different for you, right? Like you can't just go bum it on your buddy's couch while you figure out this side hustle thing. Or you can't just go move back in with mom and dad and eliminate your rent expense so that you can plow it into your new business venture. Yeah, there's going to be some limiting factors, but it also, like, to me, bro, like it also forced me to run my stuff more efficiently as it related to my time anyway.
mm,
It's like there's a lot of business owners that would potentially benefit from having the family, because it would create the time constraint that they're not willing to manufacture themselves, if that makes sense. Like you
100%.
have the time. If you don't have the time, it's like, well, all I have to give to this today, I don't have 16 hours to give to it. I have 6 hours to give to it. So that means I better be spending those 6 hours with the highest leverage activities that I could possibly be spending my time doing. And I have to be really, really intentional about this time. And that means I might have to pay myself a little bit less so that I can afford to bring on this other person who can take these tasks that I just literally don't have time to do, and do them efficiently. And so it actually kind of almost makes you operate more like a real business owner rather than somebody who just owns their own job.
Yeah, that's right. Nothing teaches you how inefficient you are with your time like having a child or children, and realize how much time you're wasting all the time. I love hiring parents, specifically single moms, to work for me because nobody has the motivation but more than that, knows how to be efficient with their time.
Ruthlessly
And
efficient. Yeah.
yeah, um, but that's like you said, it's everybody's reality is going to be different. If you're in a situation where you have a spouse or a partner and children, the most important thing is to make sure that they're on board with this lifestyle because, like we've both said, it can be messy, it can be alienating. You know, constantly my wife is checking in with me at the end of the day, like, how are you? How is today? What version of you am I getting today? And
Mm-hmm.
yesterday, my version was, I'm extremely stressed.
Mm-hmm.
Yesterday was a day. 2 days ago, I was goofing around. I was given double piggyback rides. We were rolling around on the ground. I was cooking dinner. I was on top of the world. But entrepreneurship is a roller coaster. Your mood changes like the tide depending on what's going on, and your partner needs to be on board with that. Maybe you're a Zen master and nothing gets to you, and then you should have started a company yesterday. If you have that temperament, like go do it. But beyond making sure they're on board from that lifestyle perspective, understanding your financial picture and whether or not you can afford to be an entrepreneur is extremely important. It is absolutely a privilege, and they need to understand that this is about the future. Can they stomach some pain and a little bit of tightening of the wallet in the short term for a potential where you get to work for a couple hours a day. They don't have to work. Your kids get to go to private school. And maybe that's not your goal. I mean, this goes back to what we were talking about before. You should be very, very tightly connected to what your goal is, not from a financial perspective, but from a lifestyle perspective. And how much money do you need to achieve that goal? Because
Yeah.
going back to what is a material need that society expects you to have and what do you actually want, all I want to do is be a baseball coach. I don't need to fly on private jets. I just want to have the freedom to manage my day to day and spend as much time as possible with my family and my friends and on my hobbies.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I would like to take my family to Europe every now and then. I would like to uh, provide for my children the very best, whatever that means in,
Mm-hmm.
the future from now. But I'm not looking for opulence. I don't need to be a billionaire. I just want to live comfortably, and to me, that doesn't mean, I back into my financial number through that. What does
Yeah.
it mean? Okay, sending my kids to school, making sure we can eat out this many times a week or
Yep.
month, making sure we can take, one or two nice trips a year.
Yeah.
Um, how much money is that? And then how many clients do I need based on that? And that's how I think about my financial picture.
Yeah. It's kind of like which Hawaii trip do you want to take? Like
Right.
you don't. There's very different ways to go to Hawaii. That you can take a private jet and stay at the Four Seasons, or you can fly commercial economy and you could rent an Airbnb for a week. It's like they're two vastly different things, and both of them, by the way, are going to create equally as good memories for your kids. Your kids don't care. They just want to spend time with you. So
That's right.
getting some clarity around what's important to me, not what's important to what my classmates in college value, not what's important to my parents, not what's important to culture, not what's important to my professor at university. Like none of those things matter. It's what's important to you, and you have to pursue um, that ultimate level of clarity in order to be able to back into reverse engineer how you're going to get there. And I think a lot of people would be surprised. I will say that I like what my recommendation is like figure out whatever dollar amount you think that is, and then just double it for fun
Mm,
because life has a tendency to throw things your way that are unexpected, that you don't want to deal with, that you have to deal with, like unexpected medical bills. Literally right now, bro, we have to replace the transmission in one of our cars. Like we drive paid off vehicles with a lot of miles on them that are historically dependable, but the transmission's going out. It's like, well, that's not a fun
mm.
expense. That's going to cost me $5,000-6,000. You know what I mean? To throw a new transmission in the car. But you life is always going to have ways to take your money from you. So whatever your number is, just double it and then reverse
Yeah.
engineer from that goal because it's always going to take a little bit more than you think it's going to take.
Yeah. And to your point, just having a plan will put you so far ahead of the vast majority of people who don't have a plan.
Mhm.
Almost certainly you will, if you set goals that are ambitious, even if you don't reach them, you'll get farther than you would have without those goals. So it's really important to just put something down on paper. I mean, we have my goals this year were, I mean, all over the place, around family, around health, around my business, around spirituality, all this stuff. The business goals, I'm already close to achieving, far in excess, much farther than I thought I would be, just because you set the goal and then you get to work. And
Mm.
then, you know, I really think it's important from the financial perspective to use, think of money as a tool and not as the thing.
Mm.
You want it so that you can accomplish certain things with your life,
Yeah.
but it is a tool, and you don't want that to be the focus, or else you're going to value the wrong things in life. I mean, and that's not to say you shouldn't try to make as much money as possible, and that
Correct.
it can be the goal, but make sure you understand what you're doing with it. Otherwise, it's never going to be enough. You're always going to be striving and you're never going to be satisfied.
Yeah. Money is neither intrinsically good nor bad. It's neutral. But what I tell people all the time is like, if it is neutral, I'd rather have a lot more of it than a lot less of it. You know what I mean? Like, which is why this podcast exists. It's like,
Totally.
yeah, but I've been in positions where I've been good financially. I've been in positions where I've been bad financially, and I'll take the good
No
10
doubt.
times out of 10, you know.
No doubt.
If you were having to start over today, bro, like you lost everything, you're starting from scratch. It's whether this is 2025, 2026, 2027, whoever's listening to this could be listening to it a couple years in the future. Um, what would be the first thing that you would do to start to make more money?
Mm. Well, I think really important again to set the perspective of, is it just me or is it me and my family? If it's me and my family, I'm gonna go get a job as quickly as possible anywhere. I don't care if it's construction or fast food or whatever, waiting tables, anything. Um, just make money to make sure my family is safe, and then stay up all night trying to build something. If it was just me, the world is moving so quickly right now with automation and LLMs. It has never been easier to start a business. It's never been easier to make money online. But where I think a lot of people get hung up on is um, over planning and waiting for the perfect opportunity. I think
Mm.
you need to form a strong opinion about where you believe the world is going and try to release something that solves that problem as quickly as possible. Do it publicly, get information from the people who you're trying to serve, be in touch with them constantly, get their feedback, and constantly ship. Just try to solve one problem that you feel extremely connected to, um, and then talk to the people you're trying to serve over and over again until you have a business.
Dude, this has been a fun conversation, man. I appreciate you coming on. Let's move into the last segment here. Just a few quick random questions, quick random answers. You ready?
Yes.
What profession other than your own do you think that it would have been fun to master?
uh, I am a musician. I would have loved to. I almost went to school for music. My saxophone teacher talked me out of it because he told me I was not serious enough about it to do it, but I would have loved to pursue some kind of music.
If you could sit on a park bench with someone, past or present, and chat for an hour, who would it be?
Oh man. I would have loved to spend some time with Bob Marley.
How do you like to consume information best? Books, audiobooks, blogs, podcasts, YouTube videos?
I've been watching so many YouTube videos, but I've recently gotten back into reading. I had a very toxic relationship where I felt like I needed to be reading business books or nonfiction for it to be valuable. And I recently have gotten back into fiction reading, and it is so pleasant.
What is a resource, a book or a podcast or YouTube channel that you'd recommend for somebody that wants to make money?
Well, you got to listen to Travis Makes Money, obviously.
Obvious
Um,
one, yeah.
Outside of that, I really like Tim Ferriss. I mean, it's really wide reaching, not just about money, but entrepreneurship and the world at large.
What is your go-to pump up song, Jake?
Wow. I'm a big fan of the band Fish. They have a song called Tweezer Reprise that will get you pumped up for sure.
What is something that you are not very good at?
Uh, I am really not good at getting to places on time.
Punctuality. We share that
Yeah,
one, my friend. Yeah, we share that one.
yeah.
As we get everything wrapped up here, Jake, where can people go to get more from you?
If you want to learn more about me, I have a personal website, heyjakey.com, and you can check out patientprocure.com as well for work stuff. And I'll have a new venture launching pretty soon that I'm excited to share with the world, but it's a good place to start.
Hey, Jakey, Jakey.
That's right.
Heyjakey.com. Go check out some of the stuff that Jake's putting out. I'm sure you will not regret it. Jake, thanks so much for taking the time to spend with us today. I know you're a busy dude. You got a sick kid on the couch. Go check on them. And everybody else listening, tuning in, remember, money only solves your money problems, but it's a little bit easier to solve the rest of your problems if you got some money in the bank. So let's solve that problem first here on the Travis Makes Money podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Catch you next time. Peace out.